What are you doing?
Well, I'm trying to see if I can EDC this door tool that we're going over on gear tasting today.
I don't think that fits.
The best part is it's not that noticeable. Hey guys, welcome to Gear Tasting. Today I wanted to start off with answering kind of a common question we get a lot, which is what's the difference between the easy decoders we sell and the quick sticks we sell. However, I want this to be a more all-encompassing look at bypassing versus picking, because that's kind of where the meat of this lies. So in traditional lock picking, and I know I've gone over lock picking before on Gear Tasting, but instead of using tension and a rake or a single pin pick to enter a keyway, so let's just say, for instance, this keyway is what I was trying to get into on the padlock, which of course I have permission from myself to pick. You should always get permission before you pick locks. So instead of trying to rake the lock or single pin pick it, which can consume time, you're sitting there messing around with a pick, you're eating up time. Whereas if you know locks and you know how they can be defeated, bypassing can be a faster method than picking. So also, picking can be very difficult, especially in a padlock scenario where it's padlocked to something and now you're kind of doing one of these things, you can barely see the keyway. It can be a tough situation. So our quick sticks are designed to bypass the keyway of a standard padlock. And then the easy decoders are meant to bypass a traditional combination lock, like so. So what I have is one of our visible cutaway combination locks, and we do this to illustrate the locking dog in here, or this tension bar that you lift up on with the easy decoder. So the big difference between quick sticks and easy decoders, talking about the premise of bypassing, is that easy decoders are super thin. They are rail thin, very easy to bend, very easy to break. They are not meant to be multiple use devices. They are meant to be kind of a one use, hope I got in without bending it type of deal, and I'll explain that in a second. Whereas quick sticks, even though they're sold in the same type of 2-pack, so either you get 2 easy decoders or 2 quick sticks, they come in our little branded package like this, but quick sticks are very thick, they hardly bend compared to the easy decoder. So lots of bend and flexibility in easy decoders, not so much bend or flexibility in quick sticks, and that's for a good reason. So when you insert a quick stick into a lock, you're pressing up on the pins, which if you're familiar with a standard pin and tumbler lock, what you've got is key pins and driving pins. So the driver pins come down from the springs at the top of the lock, and they enter the driver pins, they enter the key pins. So there's a 2-pin stack on there, and the key pins are what are the varying heights in the lock. So when you rekey a lock, you are changing the key pin heights so that you can change the contour of the key cuts, if that makes sense. So essentially what you're doing with a quick stick is you're reaching into the lock, you're lifting up on the pins to get the depth that you need. And I'll get there in just a second. Once you've got the depth that you need, you simply lift up and it pops the lock. So that's a bypass versus a pick. So picking can take an extremely long time to do, depending on the day of the week, depending on your mood, depending on how rushed you are. Picking is it's very essence. So the tension that you put on it, varying stress levels can all impact your picking and take forever. So what can be a quick lock for one person can be extremely challenging for another, even though their skill levels are on par. I'm not talking about like your Skyrim lockpicking skill level. I'm talking about real life picking, and you should always practice that. I also really didn't address the whole lock sport thing. This is really kind of a cool movement. The essence of block picking and why you would want to learn that is to understand locks and how they can be manipulated so that you can better protect your home and your own family. So that's kind of the real meat of why we advocate lock picking so much here on ITS. So now that I've kind of gone through bypassing, I will quickly show the easy decoder at work too. So in traditional combination locks like this, to the right of the third wheel from the left, so if you flip a combination lock over as you're reading the numbers, 1, 2, 3 from the left, on the right side, you're going to insert this. And it's made to fit within that very small space between the wheels. So what you want to do is you want to be really careful when you're inserting this in here, because too much pressure can bend this thing and then you're kind of SOL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come from the top, almost attacking it in a little bit of a downward angle, and then I'm going to try to find the point at which it moves in. And while you're, I'm not sure if I'm in the right place, but the way that you do this is you're going to press on the lock like this at the same time you're pressing down on the easy decoder, and it's going to lift up the lock. So I was in the right place. So that's really all you're doing. You're tricking the lock, and you can see this thing. Hopefully you can see that thing moving. So that little locking dog is what moves when the easy decoder is inside of that. And most combination locks can be open with this, but this is also an illustration of how insecure padlocks are. You know, when you put one of these on your fence, you should really know what you're getting into. There's also another way to bypass these, which is kind of shimming. You can actually shim from the top. They actually make specific padlock shims, different companies do. But I found that easy decoders and quick sticks are the fastest methods. So moving on to kind of a larger scenario bypass is doors that have a gap under them can be bypassed with things called door tools, or under the door tools. So there's a couple companies out there that make these. I have one here today from company Sparrows, and I have one made by a company called Benjim. And they're two different styles, and these have become a little more commercially available. They used to be very restricted in terms of who could buy them. However, they are becoming more ubiquitous on the commercial market, so therefore I'm going to go over them and kind of show you how they work. The way this works is that the tool itself, whether it's this looped style or the cable style, so the first is, let's just focus on the first style, which is the cable style. This is the Sparrows one. So what this does is it inserts under the gap that's underneath the door. If you can imagine the doorway being right here, it inserts under the door, and you can pop it up like this once you're underneath the door, and this ridge or loop here is made to fit underneath the door once you pop the tool up. And then really you hook, so you're turning like this. And I should say that this is more for doors that have a handle release. Obviously, if there's a knob on the other side, these kind of tools aren't going to work. Things like hotel room doors are very insecure because of these tools. And again, because they're more on the commercial market, you really need to kind of be aware of these things when you're staying in hotels. So this kind of comes into the whole hotel security type loop. Always lock the deadbolt. However, in hotel room doors, when you pull down on the handle, even if the deadbolt's locked, the door opens. So you really need to kind of be aware of these things. Always use the chain. However, there's also bypasses for the chain. We can get into those in another episode. So once you have this under the door and you loop this over the handle, so this is made to catch the crook of the handle, you pull down on the wire like so, and the force of that is going to pop open the door. So that's kind of the premise of these tools. Now that's the wire type tool, like the Sparrows tool. This under the door entry tool, the Benjim, uses a little bit different mechanical advantage. So you have this loop that by pressing on this, you expand the loop. So shorten the loop by pulling, press to expand the loop. So depending on the height of where you believe the door lever is going to be at, you can kind of gauge how big of a loop you need. Then simply slip this under the door, pop that up, it catches the door crux, and then you pull like this, depressing the door lever and getting into the door. So that's the Benjim tool. These are very specific tools, however they do exist, and because, like I said, they're becoming more available in the commercial market, it is something you need to be aware of, and it is something that you need to understand how it works so that you can be aware that that bypass technology exists. So again, the whole premise of teaching about lockpicking and what we're kind of trying to accomplish with the lesson on bypassing is to know these things exist so you can better protect yourself and your family. So again, bypass tools, that was the Benjim and the Sparrows, I believe, under the door tool. Welcome to Questions Over Coffee. I am drinking some more lovely Avoca coffee today from Fort Worth, Texas. First question is from Tika the Husky, who asks a lot of questions, but I appreciate that. I like seeing your name. Can you recommend a fixed blade knife for teaching a young kid about knives and knife safety? My nephew is 5 and he's always asking about the knife in my pocket. I can do my best to give you some ideas. I taught, I guess, the knife safety portion. I'm not sure what the scouts called it, but I taught a little bit of that when I was an assistant scoutmaster. My stepson has grown very tall and big. He's no longer a kid anymore, so therefore I don't get as much stuff to do with the assistant scoutmaster position. I do still help out with my troop, but the premise behind teaching that is, man, I cannot remember the name of that card. You would cut a corner if they were unsafe with the knife. They lose 4 corners, they take the knife away. Anyway, so what I would recommend is a knife from Light My Fire. This is the fire knife, and I will go over this just a little bit, but I would also recommend probably a pocket knife with a very strong locking mechanism. So if you were going to teach a kid about knife safety, I would first teach them about the blood circle. So when you're holding out a knife and you spin around in a 360, you want to make sure no one is in that vicinity. Obviously, it's probably better to do that with a closed knife or a knife with a sheath on it like this, so you're not literally slashing into the air, cutting people on your way around your 360. But that's the thing we teach to Boy Scouts as a way to make sure that there's no one in their vicinity before they go, whittling on a stick or something like that. But I like the fire knife a lot more. I like fixed blades for something to show kids how to use a knife. The fire knives are very sharp, just like a pocket knife would be, but the old adage is, a dull knife can be more dangerous than a sharp knife. So I don't really think of the blade sharpness as a reason not to, or to favor one knife or the other. So I like the fire knife because you can kind of teach 2 things at once with this thing. So you not only are teaching, proper blade management. The knife blade is not too large, but it also has an integrated ferro rod in it. So in the back of this knife, there's a little twist lock mechanism that can dock in and out a little ferro rod. So you can start teaching them about how to properly spark a fire by getting close to whatever you're lighting and spark it up. I'm going to try not to start a fire here. But that is the premise behind the Light My Fire fire knife. I would highly recommend this. I think the sheath, while not perfect in my opinion, for a kid, I think it's great. I think the locking retention is really good on the sheath. It's plastic, works really well for a blood circle. You're not going to stab anybody with it, and it clips onto a belt really nicely too. So if your kid has jeans on or a belt, it'll work really well. You can kind of clip it in a way that kind of clips into the belt loop sometimes, and you can kind of keep it secure that way if you don't have a belt. But I like this. Pocket knife wise, I think those, the little Swiss Victorinox knives are okay. However, they don't really have a good locking mechanism. That was like the first pocket knife I remember having, but I also remember almost cutting my finger because the thing closed on me when I went to go do something with it when I was younger. So I think giving them the proper tools is important, and that's really what I'd advocate. A knife with a proper locking mechanism if you're going to choose a pocket knife, or something that's got some good features like this if you're going to choose a fixed blade. Okay, next question comes from Max on Twitter. If I expect rain, is it dumb to wear my rain gear permanently during 5 days in the open? Yes. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I would not do that. So what you can do is kind of dual purpose your top. So I like sometimes wearing a Gore-Tex type top or like a level 6 type top, whatever your your way of describing that, level 6 PCU. So really, rain gear is better with a breathable Gore-Tex, and we've talked about this before. You want something that is going to breathe, because if you put on a plastic bag, you're going to get all kinds of condensation in there and you're going to get wet, and wet really never works on the inside of clothing. You want your system to wick away water and sweat and perspiration. You don't want it to hold that in. So first of all, selecting good rain gear is important. And because it's venting, you can technically wear it. However, it's not going to be comfortable. I would opt to have the jacket readily available in the event of rain. I would have my pants also and then maybe the top of my pack so I can quickly put them on. You want something too that's going to be large enough to fit over your existing pants that you're wearing on the hike, or shorts, or what have you. And then you also really need to consider your footwear too. So I really don't feel that getting kitted out in rain gear is good in any situation unless there's really rain that you're dealing with. But the top, like the Gore-Tex jacket, is great for being a windbreak. You know, you can vary the level of insulation in, between your, I guess, your next to skin layer, and then you got your mid layer, and then the jacket. You could use that for that. However, you just need to determine your level of comfort. That's really what I would suggest. So making sure you have good, breathable rain gear is number one. Number two is just finding out what's going to work for you. So if it works for you, go for it. But I personally would not wear rain gear the whole time. Hey guys, thanks for watching Gear Tasting. Remember, if you have any questions, use the pound tag Gear Tasting. It's right here on the mug, really small. If you don't have a mug yet, they're in the ITS store, by the way. And if you're watching this video and you are not yet subscribed, please click the subscribe button. Not only does it help our channel grow, but it helps get our videos in the eyes of more people on YouTube. They'll recommend them to different people that are watching other videos. So thanks for subscribing if you're not subscribed. And if you want to click the little bell icon to get notifications, you'll know every time we publish a video. It's a pretty good deal. And it's free, just like our videos. And if you like what we're doing and you want to support the show, we have a Patreon channel, so patreon.com/ITSTactical. You can sign up to support us and help us grow in our goals that we have here for the show, and we'll give you back something in return. Thanks for watching.